Hey, good afternoon. I'm so glad you guys have joined me today. I am here today with Austin Gardiner, and it is really interesting because he's with GL Pools. And this is a second generation business. He's been in business for a very long time. But one of the things I'm going to have him explain to us is how do we clean our swimming pools and spas? And this is something we've never talked about on this show before because it's not something that as professional house cleaners we typically do. Now, we get asked a lot of times by customers if we can like just clean out their pool, or if they can show us how to do it, can we do it? Or can we clean out the hot tubs and things like that? And oftentimes, house cleaners wanting to please the customer will say, well, sure, we can do that. And the answer is, let's stop and pause for just a second and find out the rest of the story. So today we have Austin Gardiner here with us today, and I'm hoping he's going to explain to us the realities of how to clean out a swimming pool and a spa. So please help me welcome Austin Gardiner. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much. How about yourself?
I'm very good, thank you. I want to highlight, and I'm going to bring you big here on the screen here for a second, because I want to highlight this amazing swimming pool that you have behind your head. I think that's one of the coolest pieces of artwork that I've ever seen. And for those of you that are listening to the podcast, it's a 5-piece canvas painting of a swimming pool that is crystal clear, and it's right behind Austin's head on the wall, and it looks amazing. There you go. That is so cool. Um,
Thank you very
so
much.
So I'm curious if you will tell us a little bit about GL Pools and how did you get into the pool cleaning business? Because that's a really important business for people with swimming pools.
Definitely. Yeah, I'd be happy to share that. I am second generation, like you mentioned. My father, his name's Phil Gardner. He's owned a pool service company here in San Diego for as soon as I could basically walk and had a day off from school, I'd be tagging along with my dad and learning the ropes. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed those early years. When I turned 18, I had a chance to start something of my own. So that's what I did in 2006.
And so you are in San Diego. So tell
Correct.
me the scope of work, because I see on the truck that you have here that it also says repair and installation service. So this is more than just cleaning. Tell me a little bit about the scope of the business that you do and how that all works for, let's say, a homeowner or a B&B owner that has a swimming pool, or a vacation rental owner or somebody like that.
As we can and as much expertise as we can. So cleaning is like one of the balls we're juggling, but there's so much more we need to be able to do to provide quality service and problem solving. Unfortunately, a pool doesn't just stay problem free forever. So when a problem does arise, like to help them move through those steps and to navigate those next steps. So there's a lot that can happen, and we want to be an advocate for them, make their equipment last longer. But when it does, their parts and tools, and they get right into the repair and diagnosis.
So if you keep a pool clean, does that prevent some of the stuff that will help or cause a pool to break down or fall apart?
It's a fantastic question, a very informed question. Yes, it does. You can prevent a lot of these issues. Quite often, we find issues repair. A lot of times, it comes back to a service-related issue where we may have low flow. Pump basket got clogged with leaves. Well, that's a cleaning issue. Really, that basket should be emptied regularly. It should be inspected weekly. That's what our service technicians are trained to do. Comes out the pump. Well, now you're talking about a multi-thousand-dollar repair. So it's one of those things where you can step over dollars to save dimes. That expression sticks in my mind, that if you don't pay for professional services or prioritize these maintenance tasks, you end up with much more expensive.
So then my question is, if you are not able to clean your pool on a regular basis, like I don't know, let's say that you get super busy and you're not able to clean, is it possible that then you would call a service and have a service come on a regular maintenance basis so it takes that off your plate?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not ashamed to even admit this, but I do that for my own pool at home. I use our company, GL Pools, to service my pool. I certainly know how, but I work full time in this company. Do not have to go home and continue working. When I get home, I want to spend time with my kids. I've got two young daughters. That's precious time before they go to bed. So it offers me the opportunity to do that. So it's a way to buy back your time, and highly recommend that for homeowners who don't have the time to master this craft. It is like to preserve not only the equipment and the plaster and the materials, but the health and the wellness and the enjoyment. Those things really, really matter. So it's about quality of life and helping our clients to enjoy what they've worked so hard to put together for their backyard.
Mm. Well, and I know that there are a lot of people who have entertainment sessions. They invite friends over, they have parties, and the backyard is a really big area of entertainment. And so making sure that you have a crystal clear pool is of high priority when you're going to be entertaining. And especially now that we see a lot of people getting ready for spring and summer and getting ready for the pools. Is there something we do to clean our pools on off season? Like right now, our pools right now in North Carolina are not quite open yet. We're like getting ready to open them. Is there cleaning and stuff that we should be doing in advance and getting it ready for the opening of the summer?
Definitely, and there are so many different varieties of answers here because of the locality. So the location matters tremendously. In San Diego, we don't even have pool closures. There are some seasonal options to reduce the service and to save some money, but it's still a weekly visit. Everything we do is a weekly visit. In San Diego, we are borderline swim season all year long.
Mm,
Just a great part of living here, but that is part of the downside is that pool. So we need to make sure that they're maintained all year long. As far as winterizing, obviously there's different things for different areas, but making sure that that's done on schedule, putting it on a calendar is one of those big things for winterizing. It needs to be circulating, but you did it a month late. Well, that can cost you some time and some money.
mhm. I know that in North Carolina, we have a lot of pollen at this time of the year. And
Hmm.
so if your cover is off your pool, we call them whirly twirlies because the leaves, as they start to come on the trees, there are these trees that have like little whirly twirlies that come down and they just coat the ground. I mean, the ground is completely coated and you can't literally take off your cover until the whirly twirlies have been blown away. And it's like another 2 weeks down the road. And then the bee pollen has kind of subsided. Otherwise, you're gonna have all kinds of ick and crap inside your pool.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we do have pollen issues here too. Whirly twirlies is a new one. My my language. But we do have pollen issues. Those things are high in organic content and high in phosphates and things like that. So they even influence the water chemistry. They certainly influence the look and the tile. So there's little cleaning tips and tricks that you can do that help to reduce that or make that.
And so what would you recommend if I were a homeowner and I had whirly twirlies and I had icky content, as you say, organic content inside my swimming pool, and I was wanting to get it completely clean. I went to your website and I pulled out a picture, and this was a before picture. You have some before and after pictures that are
Yes, these are some of
amazing.
my favorite.
But you have a picture here that if I had a swimming pool like that, I mean, I would run for dear life. It's got all kinds of just ick to it. I mean, like, what do you call this? When you see a pool like this, what do you do?
So I mean, it looks inviting, right? You want to invite all your friends
No.
and family over to swim. Yeah, we call this a green to clean, but this is the step one. Um, you know, they these are very intimidating, typically for the homeowner, or for folks who haven't had the experience of turning this around as much, because we're confident that even when we see this, we know that there's a code to break, that will turn this into a crystal clean pool. There's some things we need to figure out how to increase that flow and to increase filtration and get to the bottom of why this happened in the first place. At times, you do need to refresh that water if the water is so critically old or mistreated. But most cleaning practices on an aggressive schedule, coming once or twice a day for 3 days, we can turn them around really quickly. At times, we've had somebody with a pool like this that says, "I was hoping I could swim this week." And we have been able to turn it around in that sort of abbreviated timeline. It is possible if you can get down to the bottom why it's happening.
Well, I saw the after picture, and I would like to share that if I might. This is
Absolutely.
the after picture of this pool right here. It's shot from a different angle. You've got the diving board right here, and then over here you have the diving board over here, which is the corner right here in the picture. But
Right.
this is the same pool, and I'm really intrigued at how, number one, and maybe you can share the insight on this for us. How did a pool get in this situation in the first place?
I believe this was one that I was on site for personally, but the standard way this happens is through, well, there's a few different ways. The one common story is it just didn't make it on the calendar to take care of this pool, and once it starts to slip and starts to get out of control, it can escalate really quickly. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you'll miss some of those signs until it's kind of in the too late phase.
Mhm.
Cleaned. That was probably the number one reason that this started to happen. It wasn't something that was on someone's calendar. It would 2 or 3 years later, that filter cannot take any more material. So a pool filter has a square footage which is packed with material. It's like trying to push water through a brick wall. You're just not getting any water movement through there, and you're not getting any additional bacteria or contaminants removed. So in this
Mhm.
situation, as soon as we clean the filter, we were off and running. Obviously, we had to address the chemistry because we need to kill that bacteria and kill that algae. So we had to shock that pool. But if I recall correctly, this did not use on a standard pool. So no magic chemical needed, just trying to oxidize and eliminate that bacteria and that algae and give it nonstop filtration for a few days.
Now, you talk about water chemistry. For those of us that don't have a swimming pool, and this is a new concept to us, what is water chemistry and how does that affect the cleaning process or the use of your swimming pool?
Right. It's the most important part, I would say, of what we have going on with these pools, because not only is it something you can't see directly, it takes some expertise to train and to test these things and to understand influenced by that. Materials that you've spent tens of thousands of dollars on, pebble or plaster materials, they're highly affected by water chemistry. So corrosive water that's stripping away and eating away at materials, or scaling water that's depositing calcium scale. Those things will, and we have seen that before, where mismanagement, and that even happens sometimes through, I would say, air quotes, professionals, but
Mhm.
maybe less trained, less to testing and knowing the things that need to be tested weekly and monthly and logging those things so that you can track trends and understand why those things are happening. We're testing chlorine, free and total chlorine, pH, total alkalinity, calcium hardness, cyanuric acid, total dissolved solids, salinity, a number of other things. So we're testing many things constantly through the to having medical records. It's understanding what's happening underneath and the why behind what we're seeing play out.
Well, I was going to ask the question, and this comes up to me a lot. I get asked a lot in the cleaning business. Can a house cleaner jump in and also clean someone's pool? Like, oh, hey, by the way, while you're cleaning the house, can you step outside and clean the patio and clean the pool as well? And as house cleaners, we typically don't do that. And you just mentioned a whole bunch of things that would suggest the reasons why, from the alkalinity to the acids and all of that. the different
Right.
technology that you used. Can you share with us some of the reasons why this is a specialized industry that people outside their league, like I say, stay in your own lane. People
Right.
outside their league should not be attempting this at someone else's house.
Absolutely. It's an important question, and I think it's important to be able to say no. We get asked to do things that are somebody wants us to start breaking up concrete. We're going to partner them with the right person who has the license and the experience to do that. That's not
Mhm.
us. We want to stay in our lane as well. And specifically here for the liability aspect, this is a body of water that swimmers, bathers, they're going to be in this body of water. That alone increases some liability. Not only that, those materials we just talked about. If somebody puts themselves in a position where maybe they've damaged some thousands of dollars of equipment or tens of thousands of dollars in materials, that starts to become a very hard to navigate situation. So chemistry knowledge is huge. It's something that can affect the health and wellness of human beings. So it's important that it's done with experts. And it's not that it's impossible. It just takes dedication and learning, and a professional will have done that.
And now you mentioned a few, and thank you for explaining that because it's easy then for a house cleaner, for example, to say, no, that's not something that we do. Also, can we talk about for a second the possibility? I know that there are a lot of vacation rental owners that expect a house cleaner is going to come, and even though there are a lot of things that a house cleaner has to do on a vacation rental turn that they don't do on a normal cleaning, that does not include pools. And I'll back up for just a second. On a regular clean, we don't open people's drawers, we don't open closets, we don't go through people's stuff, for example. But on an Airbnb clean, we might. We got to open up the bedstand and look inside and make sure that somebody didn't leave a charger. We got to make sure that people didn't leave clothes in the closet or that they didn't leave something behind that we then have to ship to them. So there are things that we do not because we're spying or we're snooping, but
Right.
because the scope of the work has changed. However, and we do laundry and stuff like that that we typically don't do on a regular cleaning job because we're washing the bedding and the linens and things like that. The scope of work is different, but that does not include hot tubs and swimming pools and spas and saunas and things like that. Can you address to us the reasons why?
Yes, for the similar reasons to what we just described there, but they're as a we do provide service for Airbnbs. They have that high turnover rate, high demand. It is a business. So it's not the same for us even as treating it like a standard residential. It needs to be treated more similar to a true commercial property. And what risks could be posed for a potential hot tub swimmer or bather, they're tremendous. So getting the wrong chemistry in there and having a rash or not addressing the chemistry at all and getting a recreational waterborne illness, those sorts of things are, again, tremendous risk. The impact on another human being is even more important to me. So understanding what could happen, that's one of them. It can be managed, but I would recommend drawing a line. And you said the word scope. I think that's a brilliant word to point out. Define the scope, and making sure that a client understands clearly what scope you're committing to is huge in any sort of agreement you have with a client. This is as far as I'm going to go. We will not, and as far as I should be stepping into.
Mhm.
Beyond that, I would recommend pairing them with a good professional pool service cleaning company in that area. Um, we can make plans that help to address things like the frequent turn 2 to 3 times a week. If they're very high use and they want it perfect, that's likely what it's going to take.
And for a homeowner that doesn't have a vacation rental property or needs 2 or 3 times per cleaning per week, about how often does somebody need to hire a service like yours to come turn over their pool and get it cleaned and keep the pipes or the filters clean?
Sure, yeah, it's a great question. slightly different answers from everybody. But our philosophy here is that a pool needs to be visited once a week. We don't do any service plan where we're not swinging by at least once a week because water chemistry can change very quickly, and nature is not on a lane. So we want to see what's happening and get in front of it. 2 weeks, 1 month, you'll find services that do those intervals, but we don't stand behind the quality that would provide. We think that impacts the equipment and the pool in a negative way. So we like.
So I've got a question about the spas. I know that we have some spas that look like this, for example, and this might be a hot tub or uh, I guess it's called a spa. What is the difference in cleaning something like this from cleaning a swimming pool?
So a couple differences. The primary one is just the volume is so much smaller that it takes much more attention to detail when you're treating that water chemistry. Any dose that you would do in a pool, if you did something similar in a spa, would be outrageously, out of whack, out of line. So we want to understand the gallonage and really use the tools that we have to dose something. The frequency of exchanging that water, the bather load has a tremendous impact on such a small volume of water. So knowing how often is it getting used, these are questions we ask our clients. For an Airbnb, this is going to need to be drained much more frequently. And for a standard family who's using it once or twice a month, then so understanding how it's used, cleaning or dealing with the chemistry, and then again, everything is just smaller too. The filter is small. It needs to be viewed and cleaned more often because it's smaller. Just can't handle the same kind of volume.
Now, I know that I have a hot tub at my house, and it has five, I believe, five filters inside. And those filters have to be replaced on an average of, and I don't mean an average, but they have to be replaced on a regular basis. Tell me
Mhm.
what the frequency of replacing those filters are. They're like round tubes that go inside a little door, and then the water fills up in a little door.
Filters in general, the more frequently you clean them, the longer they will last because they're not going through that same stress and strain. So part of what we do, we have everybody on a filter cleaning schedule. Even in our industry, that's not as standard to hold a very, very tight schedule. Sometimes we'll get to the filter when we can, or we'll do it, maybe half the frequency that we do it. We recommend 4 times a year. That is the best way to prevent those issues, prevent tearing. For jacuzzis, again, knowing the beta load would impact that. But if you are cleaning it more frequently, once a month or twice a month, until they're very impacted, well, that water pressure is determined to find a way through that fabric. And so it's going to start to tear, stretch, crunch, pull, twist. It's strong, so it's going to find a way through. And so preventing that.
Another thing that I have at my house, and it was kind of a fun thing, is a really long, skinny little vacuum. And they sold it to me because I like vacuums and I like cleaning. And they said, "Hey, we got the perfect thing for you. This is for homeowners." And they said, "If you're a homeowner, you should have one of these." And I said, "Okay, cool." And I don't know when I'm supposed to use it, but I've used it a couple times just because I have it. And I'm like, wow, I see like little bits of sand and stuff at the bottom of my pool. And I go out and it's a really long, skinny tube. I'm sure that you know what I'm talking about. And it's like a
Mhm.
pump. And you hold one side of it and you pump with the other side of it, almost like you were inflating a bicycle tire with a bicycle
Right,
pump.
right.
And it scoops up. It's got like little brushes on the end of it, and it will scoop up and it will eat the sand that's at the bottom of the pool, and it traps it into a little filter that then can be emptied. Tell us about things that a homeowner can do in their jacuzzi or their pool, whether it's a little vacuum like that, or maybe a robot vacuum that has a motor to it. I've seen some of those as well. Do you recommend
Right.
those?
Yes, so we do recommend a pool cleaner in just about every pool. Some pools, it's around our area, it's probably more standard to have a suction side cleaner. This is one of those things that can be different all over the world, but our particular market, it's a lot more suction side cleaners, a vac line, and we can get dedicated suction through a hose and a cleaner. That's particularly my favorite just because of affordability and trustworthiness. But there are situations where we may recommend a robotic style cleaner as well. A robot, a sweep, whatever the lingo is in every particular area, that does benefit everyone. Obviously, it makes the pool stay cleaner, but the issues that I see with pools that don't have that, they'll deal with things like organic staining. So a leaf sits on the bottom of the pool for undisturbed for 5-6 days until its next cleaning visit. Well, that stain, it's going to take some work to remove, or it's going to take some time to bleach out and fade out. With a vacuum cleaner, it's picking that leaf up and similar to for preventing algae. You don't have soil and dust and dirt build up in all these spots as much. So a vacuum is a great idea. That plunger style vacuum that you're discussing, especially for smaller areas like a jacuzzi, very handy tool because your service may not be there on a Friday night, and that might be when someone's about to enjoy the spa. Well, being able to have a couple quick ways to deal with that debris yourself is it's handy. So definitely those tools. You can remove it. If you have toys at the bottom of the pool, you don't have to send the kids in to go pick them up. You've got a pole and a net ready on hand to get those out. So those sorts of things, just the standard tools, what we'd recommend.
Tell me about the standard tools. What standard tools should every homeowner have? You mentioned a pool and a net. Is that something that a professional would use, or something that a homeowner would have that they themselves would use?
Startups for new pool owners, and one of the things we do in that startup process is called a pool school. We'll inform them on the risks of pool ownership, the things you need to keep an eye on, the preventative maintenance. We of course talk to them about the value of professional service. We usually try to make sure they have the essential tools as well. So we want them to have at least a pole, a brush, a net. If they are trusting a professional service, those are probably in mind. Be more of the knowledge to understand what to do in case of an emergency. How do I decommission or shut off my pool in case something's gone wrong? So knowledge and swimmer safety, knowing how to shut a breaker off, knowing how to instruct your kids or young swimmers how to stay safe in and around the pool, how to make sure we're aware of keeping an adult supervisor around the pool. So there's figurative tools like that, but they're very, very valuable. We want every homeowner to be confident around their pool and have good memories only. That's one of the things we say around here.
I love that. So how does a person hire a professional pool company if they don't have one? Let's say that you move to a new house and there's a swimming pool and you're like, whoa, this is out of my league. I got to hire somebody. How do you hire somebody, and what questions do you ask?
Excellent question. I would recommend a few different steps. One would be to talk to your friends and neighbors if you do have somebody in the area, and of course is going to represent themselves well, hopefully, in those arenas. But getting someone who can attest to the real life experience that somebody has provided for them. Long-standing client is, probably a good thing. As far as asking the pool service company questions, there's some really great questions I'd recommend. I would ask things like, how do you schedule these routes? How do I ensure that I won't get missed? Unfortunately, at times in the pool industry, it's not as formal of a schedule. For us, we do use software that keeps us on a fairly rigid schedule. We've never that we're hitting them on time on the same predictable day with the same technician. So it's important that somebody asks that. It's important that somebody asks how much training they have on the topics of chemistry and mechanics. It'd be important to ask, do they have any knowledge about repairs? Things will go wrong. Unfortunately, some pool service companies, they won't be able to. So you want somebody who can also advocate for you and prevent issues, but solve them when they do come up. Those are some of the things that come to mind. Asking them specifics about chemistry. In our area, there's a tendency to overuse certain chemicals like chlorine tabs, and those have a side effect of overdoing the pool with cyanuric acid, which is not to get too into the weeds here, but it's a binding agent of this chemical, and your pool only needs so much. And refill this pool. It's a significant waste of time and money, and not to mention California, we can't afford to waste water. So all of those things together, we want to prolong the life of that water. Those are some questions that come to mind.
And then another question that I have is, how does a person know that their pool needs to be cleaned? Can you like see it with the human eyes, or if you wait until you can see that it needs to be cleaned, you waited too long?
Exactly. That's exactly where my brain was going. It's by the time you have that visual feedback, we have let something happen that didn't need to happen. So preventative maintenance is almost always the cheapest and most peaceful form. Chasing these problems and wasting time and stressing about them, that there is an issue occurring. But understanding how to test things and how to engage with the equipment's going to give us some feedback, like the pressure gauge. It's going to tell us pounds per square inch on the filter. Well, that's something that we log on every visit so that we can much material and need to clean the filter. Is it trending down? Well, that gives us a whole nother scenario to pursue. Why are we reducing flow? It could be a suction issue. It could be a blockage. So understanding how to read those measurements, and then similarly with the chemistry, understanding what's going to happen if I don't address this low issue. It may not show up today, but in a week, 2 weeks, a month, we'll start to see it show up in the pool. We can get in front of it by knowing our chemistry.
And what happens when we have a swimming pool that it might look clean, but it smells bad? Sometimes there's like
Mm.
a sulfur kind of smell.
Yes. So typically that means we haven't hit breakpoint chlorination. We don't have free chlorine in the pool. Even at times you can get that smell just with adding chlorine, but not enough, or adding a sanitizer, but not enough. So that smell, we need to oxidize that out. We have a backlog basically of organic material that needs to be removed. So there's different ways to do that. You can do that through chlorine, through different sanitizers. You can also use way to break down and oxidize and vaporize the materials there in that pool. But it's an important point that somebody would smell that and understand what's going on, and then start getting into the chemistry and find out why it's happening.
When you use a public swimming pool, you'll often see signs, and the signs will say things like, please shower before getting in the swimming pool. Does that really make a difference, or is that just like a polite thing to do?
Both, I suppose. But yes, it does. It does make a very big difference because we're not 100 pool. And when you have just one person in a pool as a residence, you're not going to see the impact of that significantly. But when you have 400 people making it through that pool in a day, then those habits and those signs can have a huge impact. Yes, so that oil, body film, sunscreen, even those things can create that's water surface, that water tension doesn't allow for oxidation of the water, doesn't allow for it to function correctly. You get at a commercial pool and you ever see kind of a gummy, uh, oily film that's attached to the tile. That's where that's coming from. It's typically from the bather load, sweat and things like that.
So I have another picture which reminds me, because this is a picture of a swimming pool, and the reason that I pulled this up and I got this from your website, it looks like there's a ring around the pool, and it looks like at the bottom there's little tiny bits of debris. And I'm curious, when we see something like this, what is happening in the pool? And when we call and ask you, like, hey, there's something in my pool, how would you describe this to a repair technician so that they could come and do the job properly and know what you're trying to explain?
Sure. I think this pool in particular was in the process of I believe, a drain or a refill. But we do see situations where we'll have a water level stay exactly perfect, but not, or not perfect, but you think it's okay just to let their pool sit through, half the year and just turn it back on in the spring and summer. In that scenario, that can leave a line if it's like that for, more than a couple days. Um, what we would start that can be cleaned off fairly easily. If it's scale, because we have water hardness issues in different locations, then we'd need to treat it differently because scale is going to require removal of scale. But we do see at times through construction and different issues like that, that you have some staining. Staining is because you can't start treating it until you've investigated it. So we'd want to know what it is. Is it an organic, like I was mentioning earlier, the botanical stains? Well, those are easy to treat if you know what they are. If it's a rust stain, an iron stain, a copper stain, you need to know what the metal is that's being restained is treated the same way. And at times, treating the stain with the wrong material, the wrong chemical, is going to make that particular stain worse. So
Mm.
we use products like Jack's Magic. They have some stain identification tools that help us in our industry to know what's going on, so you can figure out what type of stain that is. And as far as cleaning the floor of that pool, there's different ways to do it. A light acid and starting it back up again with fresh water if it's been sitting stagnant for a long, long time. Sometimes that's the way to go.
Are there certain things that homeowners should be looking for in the cleanliness of their pool to say, oh, hey, wait a second, there's something that I need to call a professional for help on, providing that they have a regular schedule and there's a regular service. If they see something, should they say something or do they just wait for the next service call?
We'd always love for our clients to reach out to us. We're very approachable, and our office, we'd rather get that early notice, even if it just gives them peace of mind. That's valuable to us. We won't pool. So I would always recommend just no harm in communicating. Send a picture if you have a professional pool company that can receive photos. Send a picture or a video, or get a phone call into them and ask them, is this normal? There's nothing wrong with being curious and asking, and hopefully getting a quick answer. But yes, there are definitely things that you'd want to listen for or look for. The equipment is one of those areas. If you hear noises coming from the equipment that are not, that's starving for water and it's cavitating, which is when it's struggling to get enough water, well, that could be a sign that there's a blockage, there's a air loss, a vacuum loss somewhere. And if that goes on for several days, that could be placing things that don't need to be replaced. So we have sounds, we have sights like less water flow. If you see less water flow than normal, where you attempt to use some function of the pool or spa and it doesn't work, well, we got to investigate why. If anything like that happens, I would reach out immediately and start getting answers to why it's happening.
You mentioned sending a photo or a video. Do you have a preference as to which is best?
It depends on what information I need to see here. A photo can be real quick and easy for a homeowner as well. But if we need to hear a sound or see an action, then I would rather get that video so I can get a little bit more.
So a question is, I know a lot of videos eat up a lot of megabytes or gigabytes or whatever with settings on the phones. What is the best way to send a video if when you try to send it like through email, it says, oh, there's too many megabytes and it won't let you send the video? Is it better to like upload it to your YouTube channel and send a link or like what do you recommend?
Yeah, I think one pro tip there is that a lot of videos probably be able to get that information in 8 seconds or less. and that might really help to transfer that data. Otherwise, better format than using our texting app that can only handle so much data. So yeah, sometimes we'll ask them to, if it's a longer form, send it by email. But I don't have a whole lot of other information on that. Unfortunately, I don't know how to get those compressed any more than that.
The reason I ask is because we had not used our hot tub in a long time, and we are getting ready to sell our house, and we wanted it in working order before we sold it to the next owner. And so we went to turn it on, and there was like a leak. And I was like, "Oh
Mm,
my goodness, there's a leak." And how do I explain the leak? Because I need somebody to come out and fix it. And so I unscrewed the front panel, and then I could see the leak. So I just took a little video with my camera, and then I tried to do just that. I tried to send it, but it was like too many megabytes or whatever.
right.
And so I was like, well, I have a YouTube channel, so I'll just make it unlisted, but I'll upload it to the YouTube channel and then I'll send them the link because then at least they can click on the link and watch the video. But then I was like, this is not the normal way to do it. And I know that I'm trying to make something this is not the right way how they receive information. But I was like, I don't know what else to do. So that's how I did it.
That's brilliant. I mean, that's a thinking outside the box solutions type thing. I think another way at times is if your provider can hop on FaceTime or video chat.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's something
yeah.
we've done from time to time with our clients who have an ongoing active. I don't remember this. Well, let me see if I can get somebody to hop on FaceTime with you. All right, see this one? Yep, you're pointing right at it. Let's go ahead and turn that clockwise. It's just like having a little coach show up on your phone. So at times that can be a good way as well.
Oh, I love that. That's a great way to do it. And that way you've got two-way communication where you could ask the question like, "Hey, when did this start happening?" And, kind of troubleshoot it in order to know what equipment to bring out or what parts you need to order.
Yep, it's live feedback. So everybody's getting what they need faster because it's happening right then and there.
One of the things that I've discovered, and this is just for me personally, is whenever I call a repair service, and you might give me advice on how to tweak this so that it's more effective for you, for example. But one of the things that I've always done is I've tried to take a photocopy of the serial number or the model number if there's a part in question. And that way they can either order the part or they know what version it is, or they can look it up or whatever it is they do. What do you recommend we provide the service provider when we're calling to ask for help?
It's a great question. I think that photos often up. Yeah. That's, if we're trying to help somebody get a quote for immediate repair or emergency repair, that's usually our starting point. If you know the make and model, you can text it to us, but or call us and tell us about it. But if we can get that picture, we're so familiar with all the pool equipment, we're going to know what that make and model is a lot of times just from a photograph.
Uh-huh.
Now, if it's an ongoing client for us, somebody that's signed up for service, what we do is an onboarding chance of any sort of emergency, we're prepared. So if they say, "Hey, my heater is not working," well, if they're a client with us, I already have photos of that heater and I already know the make and model. So I can
Uh-huh.
say, "All right, what's happening? We can start working on a solution for you," and we don't have to ask them in the middle of their crisis to do a whole lot that makes them uncomfortable. Climb around back there and take pictures. We can skip that step if.
What a great idea. So then the next question is, and this is not a question that I prepared to ask you, but I have to ask now because I'm thinking about do-it-yourselfers and YouTube. What happens when there's a problem and the do-it-yourselfer says, "Oh, I can probably fix this by watching a YouTube video," and then they try to fix, let's say, a pump or a filter or something in the swimming pool, and then maybe it voids a warranty of a part or something because they did it the wrong way. Can you address that issue for me?
Absolutely, we do see that from time to time. Puller spa heater. But one of the things that they require for that to be under warranty is to have chemical records and to have those chemical records show that it's been in balanced condition. For a lot of these heater manufacturers, they want that log that says, "Yes, back in June, my average pH was blah, blah, blah." So not having those records or not having the professional call in for a warranty. Also the tinkering, if somebody has engaged with something, but they're not the qualified warranty professional, that can come back to bite them as well. So it's not that I personally, I don't think I'm smarter than anyone. I think I've spent a lot of time doing this one particular trade. So I've acquired a valuable skill set that I can offer to other people. So I never approach it as this takes. It's not, one of the things we say is not rocket science, but it is science. So it does take some dedication to understand why it's happening, what's happening, and it takes putting in my opinion, years to get good at this. So that's the value of that DIYers, just knowing what that line is that you're comfortable. If someone's dedicated enough time and effort into getting good at cleaning the pool, that doesn't mean they should take the next step at jumping into we're going from one zone into a very different zone. So I don't recommend that. I think that's the line that you definitely want to draw a line somewhere, and that's a good line.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, but I have to talk about DIYers for a second because there will always be DIYers. I mean, I don't know why, but there always will be. What are some of the misconceptions or misunderstandings that some DIYers have about cleaning pools?
Well, to speak bluntly, I think a lot of people think that it's simple, that it's easy, because it looks simple. I think from an outside perspective, when you haven't gone through the education to understand what can happen, if you haven't had those negative experiences, it just looks like anybody can do this. But not everybody can do this without and dedicating a lot of time. So similar to any trade, you can do it if you dedicate a whole lot of time. From my experience, the challenges that come in also have a lot to do with schedule. Even if somebody can do it at a decent level, but their life is so busy, that it's just hard to make sure that you dedicate the calendar to this and you don't miss time. And if you miss that appointment, you might be in an unrecoverable zone where now you really need to spend a lot of time chasing this and getting it back in shape. So that's a big issue. And then also access to materials, goods. We deal with just about anything we need for the residential pool service world in a day or so. That's not something that's as easy to access for a DIYer. So they might be making concessions, installing the wrong part that might kind of work here, using the wrong type of glue, using the wrong type of fitting, those sorts of things.
And then those cause bigger problems later on, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. One of the things that can happen is now you are no longer adhering to any sort of electrical or plumbing codes. You're not adhering to local building requirements. You're installing things at the wrong spacing, too close to a house, not close enough to the shutoff valve. And then those things can really bite you when you go to sell your house and the home inspection points out a bunch of unsafe work surrounding the pool.
I did not think about that. Let's talk for a second about people repurposing their homes, because I know right now we're in a really weird real estate era where people are not buying new homes as much as the new homes construction has kind of ground to a halt. And a lot of people are staying put. They're staying in their homes right now, and the price of homes has gone up, as have the interest rates. So people are like, oh, hey, I should build a pool or I should renovate a pool that exists in my house that's been neglected. Tell me a little bit about that process and some of the things that we need to be on the lookout for.
Absolutely. The process there, I think, we do see that psychologically happening a lot here in our local market. It's just whether or not I'm going to move, I want this to look nice. If I'm here for longer than I expect it to be, I want to enjoy it to the maximum that I can. So we're big on the philosophy of preventative maintenance and prolonging the beauty and the maximum enjoyment. People haven't put in pools and spas because they had to. They put it in because typically an emotional decision. I want the kind of lifestyle that this affords me. So how do we pair that up with making sure that when you go to use it, it looks beautiful, things are functioning correctly? Now, those same philosophies are going to serve somebody really well if they try to sell their house as well. So keeping things as dialed, put something on the market if maybe the market pivots or you need to move. You have a family situation, you need to, get this posted and listed. Well, if you've got all this backlog work to do and the pool is really fallen off and it doesn't look appealing, well, the people who are coming in to view this property, they're going to have emotional reactions too. And you don't want it to look like that picture with the green pool. That's not the backyard that somebody wants to walk into. Clean, crystal clean pool that's ready to go, that says, I'm inviting, have fun, make some memories back here. This is a great spot for you. So just keeping it clean and ready can really save a lot of time and hassle, and make you ready to pivot whichever way you need to go.
Oh, that's funny you bring that up because I was looking at some real estate homes in my area the other day because our house is on the market. We're under contract right now. But as I was looking at this one home, and it was a beautiful home, there was a picture of the swimming pool from every angle and from
Hmm.
every time of day. And there were like the umbrellas were open, and then there was lemonade out on there, and then the lemonade was gone, and now there's a plant out there, and it was all about the pool. And I was like, this is so odd because really the best part about this house, whatever the house is, like they didn't care much about showing the house at all. It was all about the pool. I was like,
Right.
these people are selling a pool. They're not selling a
Yeah,
house, they're selling a pool and a lifestyle that goes with it.
absolutely. Yeah, that's for a lot of clients, that's what they've envisioned when they went to get a building, lifestyle change. And it really can be. A lot of my best memories in my childhood, swimming in the family pool, learning to
Mm.
swim, my dad teaching me how to swim, my oldest brother throwing me in the pool, all the crazy stuff that happens in a family pool. Well, those are core memories for me. Style thing that you build these memories and have this confidence that you've learned to swim, that you're comfortable swimming. You have relaxation, serenity. That can have a huge impact on the quality of life.
Mm. How can pool owners extend the lifespan of their pool and their equipment or their accessories?
Great question. Biggest thing there is going to be scheduling things preventively. We talked about a little bit filter cleanings, making sure those are done on schedule, making sure those pump baskets, skimmer baskets are maintained, emptied, that you don't let cracked materials exist, that you replace things when they need to be replaced. All those sorts of things are going to lead to a healthier life cycle for the equipment. And then that water chemistry has a huge impact on everything. That corrosive water that's too acidic, that it's going to strip away metal out of the heater, and it's going to tear apart this expensive piece of machinery. So that's one of those ways that you can just make things last longer. I like to consider it, I enjoy strategy. So I like to think about what's my annual cost of owning a pool, and how do I keep that as low as possible? Because why not? I'd like to keep that as low as possible. And this is where I think if people thought this way, they would actually, if you don't have that support and you do have an issue or a mistake gets made, of course, we're human, and it leads to a $3,000, $4,000 piece of equipment that lasted half its life, and $15,000 plaster. Spend way more to own a pool than you would if you outsourced that to a professional and they make things last twice as long, three times as long. And that's not even accounting for all the time you get back in your life, all the time you get to go do something that makes you feel happy versus working on a chore around the house.
Oh, tell me, if you will, about maintaining things like, I don't know, they're like, I'm going to call them extras, things like waterfalls and water slides and diving boards and things like that, that some people have attached to their swimming pools.
Those features can be really exciting, and they add a lot of beauty. So understanding the mechanics behind it would be the first step for us. We want to know, does it have its own dedicated equipment? Does it have its own pump? What makes this function? Does it have a valve that rotates with a motor, which would be called an actuator? Is that what's creating this flow through this water feature? We need to understand how and why it operates, so that thing that comes to mind in our area, we deal with a lot of calcium hardness, calcium buildup over time. And when that happens, we see it kind of on surfaces. So with those water features, things that drip or run off, a lot of times we recommend scheduling them only for the hours of the day that somebody's present to enjoy them, or leaving them on a manual turn off and on situation. Sometimes people let them run all the time, but that more scale buildup just because we're introducing more water on the surface of these things. So just being clever about how to operate these so that you lead to less problems.
For the homeowner that has equipment and or chemicals at their home, what is the proper way to store those?
Yes, very important. We try to catch this, especially when we're doing pool schools or chemicals that somebody bought, maybe from Leslie's or Home Depot 2 years ago, stored outdoors in the sun. So things like that really catch our attention because that's a severe hazard.
And so do you recommend a dedicated place to put those, like let's say indoors in a cool, dry place, like all other kind of cleaning chemicals?
For most, yes, most of our clients, we actually recommend they don't have any of these chemicals on site, and they just let us bring what we need, and we don't try to leave anything. The reason for that is even the more sick kids, a dog. So unless it's fully locked up and ventilated, which also needs to be ventilated for most pool chemicals, it's just not typically a great idea. But they need to be stored upright, vented lids. They need to be stored upright. They need to be spaced correctly, not next to fellow combustible materials. So, a locked room or a very safe area where it gets cool and dry, out of direct sunlight. Those would be the things I'd be looking for.
Oh my goodness, you are a wealth of knowledge. I mean, just a wealth of knowledge. I did not know that I would have so many questions, number one. Number two, I did not know I would learn so much just in the short hour that we spent together. And I'm looking at the clock and our time is gone. I mean, the time has just flown. And I sit here and I'm like, oh, I've got so many more questions. This is amazing. But please tell our listeners where they can go to find you.
Absolutely. It's been a blast for me. So thank you very much for having me, Angela. The listeners can go to glpools.com. That's probably the best way to find us, contact with us. If you're in the San Diego area, we service the entire San Diego County. We're always happy to partner up with people in our area, even in other industries. There's sometimes a lot of collaboration that can exist. You can also find us on Instagram as well. You can look up GL Pools, or you can find me on LinkedIn as well.
And I'm going to leave links in the notes below so that you guys can connect with Austin and GL Pools and maybe get other questions answered. And if you're in the San Diego area, certainly have them come out and take a look at your pool. I've learned so much today, and I think I got all of my questions answered as far as, and let me just repeat it and say it so that there are no surprises and there's no guesswork. The professional house cleaners are not pool cleaners. We don't clean pools. We don't clean hot tubs. We don't clean jacuzzis and all the things. And if you are a homeowner and you're a do-it-yourselfer, unless you are willing to go through pool school and you're willing to learn the chemistry of it and you're willing to put it on your calendar and do it on a regular basis and not let it slip. Okay, house cleaning can slip a little bit, but it sounds like the pool cannot because it's going to get really expensive if you let it slip and then try to recoup the cleaning and the maintenance and all this stuff. So just put it on a calendar and let a professional do that. It's one of the costs of owning a swimming pool and having that amazing lifestyle that you see in the pictures. Am I right? Did I get that right?
Absolutely. You knocked it out of the park. That's amazing.
Awesome. Thank you, Austin, so much for joining us today. I've been enlightened. I've really thoroughly enjoyed this hour. I appreciate your time and your energy. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. We'll see you guys again soon. Same time, same place next week. Take care.